Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now here's the guy who's ready to say, drop the 4. Wait, where the hell did this other 4 come from? Mike Bloom here to officially kick off another season of a Survivor coverage. Survivor 44 is officially here, folks. Peep the logo at the top of the screen. A new season has arrived. A new group of castaways has arrived to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. And we are here to officially jumpstart coverage of what should be a very great way to fill up our time throughout the spring of 2023. Of course, I am speaking on behalf of Rob Cesternino, who unfortunately is not able to join us today. He is away at the happiest place on earth, and we are not talking about the sanctuary where good things happen. He's at Disney World. But he should be making his way back very soon to embark on certainly talking about the 44 contestants in a larger capacity. We'll get more into that later. But in his place, we have a true star of a guest. I am so excited because 1 year ago, she was watching Rob and I have this exact type of conversation, waiting with bated breath to see how many people would get to watch her own $1 million journey happen over the course of spring 2022. It is the winner of Survivor 42, the electric Maryanne Oketch. Maryanne, how are you?
I'm doing so good. Wait, ding! There we go, because the bell's not there. I'm doing so good. That was such a great introduction for me. Like, you gassed me up too much. I'm just so excited to talk about season 44. And Mike was being too kind about Rob. Rob actually hates Survivor, even though Survivor gave him his wife and his kids. And he's like, no, I'm now a Disney person. Like, that's a whole different channel. We're supposed to be Viacom, CBS till we die. So Rob clearly came for him, came for Steven. It's going to be a Mike and Marianne podcast from now on.
There we go. It's all about Eminem, and we're here to lose ourselves in Survivor 44 this coming spring.
That was so good. That was so good.
Like delicious as a plate of mom's spaghetti. Well, let's feast here, because like you said, Rob's become a Disney adult, and so the true children in the two of us are going to talk about this cast of Survivor 44, which just dropped but a few hours ago on Tuesday, January 31st. People say, oh, it's a little early. We are only a month away. March 1st, 8 p.m., the 2-hour premiere of Survivor 44. So we've got about a month to process things over. Marianne, I just want to gauge sort of your experience with the preseason, because I very rarely get the opportunity. Of course, I'm so lucky in that I get to do so much in the preseason. But I very rarely follow up with people after the preseason to ask, how was that for you? From an island perspective, when you're sitting there,
yes,
what was that experience like for you? You're doing the interviews with people like myself and Dalton Ross. You're trying to mentally steel yourself for whatever the heck the game's going to throw your way, while also simultaneously trying to be quiet and gauge all these people and their reactions. What is that mood like going into a season of Survivor?
Honestly, it's so exciting, and it's also so terrifying because you're worried that every single wrong thing you'll do will then go and be extrapolated into the game. But it's so exciting, and doing the interviews were so exciting. It was kind of sad for us because we didn't get to meet the people, and I guess now that's going to be a thing in the future, which is okay. But it's so fun just going. And actually, the biggest fun about doing preseason interviews is being able to talk freely, because in pregame, you're not allowed to talk pretty much for the whole time until you actually get on the mat, because they want it to be as genuine as possible. So you're just sitting down quietly waiting, and then it's okay, MO, because they call you by your initials. It's MO, It's time for your interview. Then you get to be then you have to go back, walk back to your seat, be quiet again, and be oh my goodness, I can't wait to see this. And especially for season 44, it's I can't wait to see this 9 months later, what I said, because that's when it's going to air.
Yeah, so to that point, when you fast forward those 9 months, when you begin to see what your MO was, and you get to revisit things, especially given the journey that you underwent, you sort of have this dual line of thinking, right? Where on the one hand, you get to take a look back in the time capsule of what May 2021 Marianne was thinking. At the same time, you're also having an entire month of people looking at your interviews, poring over your cast photo, and making judgments about you. What was that process like? Because I know you showed after the season that you and Omer were listening to stuff like this very podcast, laughing, grumbling, grousing about some of the things that me and a lot of the fans were saying about you preseason.
It was so fun. Like, it was genuinely, and I think a big part of it came from, number one, I was very at peace with my experience, and number two, I had a friend in the cast with Omer where I got to go and back and forth and talk to him about it, right? So like, I actually think I spent the whole day pretty much at his house. Like, we would screenshot comments on Reddit. Like, I still have like a folder on my computer which has all the screenshots of things that we said, shared each other the fun things. I got to watch together, be like, I wonder what they're going to say about us, or knowing exactly how it ended and be like, I wonder what people are going to think based on the information that I gave out before the game even started. It's just such a fun experience, which is like, you get to soak it in, you get to experience the joy of being like, oh my gosh, I can finally say it. So it's really just all excitement.
Is there, because obviously I know casts usually have some sort of group chat or system by they communicate, when the preseason stuff starts coming out, are you saying like, oh my God, I can't believe you revealed about this in your interview. Wow, you brought that outfit onto the island. Those types of peeps at each other while the season is leading up to happen?
Well, so we all follow the contract to a T, so we do not speak to each other when the show's going on until after. But like, if we were to have a group chat, all of that's going on. All of us would be like, allegedly saying, "Oh my goodness, like I can't believe you said this in preseason," or "I said this too," or "This is so funny. I remember seeing you off in the back having this interview. Who knew that's what you were saying?"
All right, allegedly, yes. Allegedly. If that were, that's a fantastical imagination, Lynn.
Yes.
But it's really interesting to get that perspective because for all we know, 1 year removed, Marianne, we are watching 18 new people perhaps embark upon the same thing. And it's a very unique set of circumstances because you had come in with your cast not having seen, obviously, Survivor 41, and therefore not getting any sense as to what the new era was. 44 has seen 41 and 42. In fact, they will mention it a number of times, including quite a number of shout outs to my co-host on this very podcast right now. But yeah, that's you.
If they made Rob, oh my gosh.
No, you, Marianne, you were a hot topic. We'll get into it a couple times in previewing this cast. But at the same time, they have not seen Survivor 43, which certainly offered, a few different wrinkles, right? Bye-bye idle phrases, hello bees. We've got things like the choose your champion advantage. So it'll be interesting to see, okay, they generally have a sense as to what a beware advantage is, for instance, but they still have different things that they'll be able to navigate. And it seems like maybe even some new stuff to throw in. Hell, Marianne, your season started with vats of mud and blood, which 41 definitely did not. So it shows that they're still willing to change things up.
Yeah. I'm so excited to see exactly how many things they'll go and show an experiment with the same things from 43 to 44 and see what new things are going to be there too.
So just to give an overlay as to what this podcast is going to be, it's going to just be a general overview of what we know so far about Survivor 44. We're going to get into some of the intel that has been given out about the season, both in the trailer as well as a couple of interviews that have been given out. We're going to give very broad overviews of all 18 castaways. Of course, I had the distinct pleasure, as Marianne mentioned before, to be able to conduct interviews with these cast members preseason. We will get into them in much more detail in the podcast to come. Rob and I will do our usual spiel of doing separate podcasts, getting to play the audio interviews. I'll, of course, have everything up on parade.com in the coming days as well. This will more so just be a basic view. And then we got a fun little piece of dessert to end this 3-course meal of a podcast, because at the time this podcast went live, 3:00, CBS and myself and some other outlets posted a 3-minute preview of the season premiere of Survivor 44. And so if people don't want to take a look at footage, you can jump out then. Totally fine. But for those that are curious, we're going to be able to actually watch on the day the cast is released 3 minutes of the season that we're going to be talking about in a month.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm so hyped for that. I'm so excited. I love Survivor. There's so much Survivor going on. Oh, this is so good.
I mean, when it rains, it pours, right? Because we are also talking the day after Australian Survivor Heroes versus Villains premiered.
Yes, that premiered yesterday. Episode 2 came out 3:30. Like, there's just so much. It's really Survivor season.
I mean, yeah, Survivor is in season right now, and we are feasting. But let's talk about something that maybe has a bit of a less meat on the bone, I would say, because when it comes to the structure and format of this season, there's not a lot of intel right now. I am very lucky in that I did have a chance to send in questions to Jeff Probst. I have yet to receive those answers. Should be posting an interview closer to the premiere time. But I asked him, as I do as well. But certainly I asked him about things that are going to be different, things that are going to stay the same between 43 and 44. That's a bit of an unknown. Marianne, from your own firsthand perspective, getting to see what was different between 41 and 42, how much do you expect is going to hold over from 43 into 44?
I believe from 41, 42, based on what we have for 43, 44, I think that we might be seeing a similar merge situation as that happened in 43, where it's like they all merge together and they have the last pre-merge boot, but a safe earn the merge. Then the first merge boot's not in jury. I think that's going to be there to stay. But I do think that, how 41 didn't have the amulet and 42 did, I do think there'll be some sort of like new mechanic or advantage, which we didn't see in 43, which we will be seeing in 44.
So you're saying basically the bones are going to stay the same, but there's like one fun little organ to get thrown in there that wasn't existing last time.
Yeah, like we're throwing in an appendix that works, I think, for 44.
I mean, listen, your mileage may vary. We shall see if the appendix ends up working by the end of it. But at least it's a new appendix.
That's true. A new appendix.
So what we do know about Survivor 44 is that we get this preview that happened. I'm not talking about the one that aired on Sunday where Jeff Probst is kind of negging us.
Hey, you. Have you ever watched Survivor? What are you doing? I dare you to watch Survivor.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I felt a little, I have been, so luckily I don't fall into this category, but I feel a little shamed to be like, okay, I guess I have to now. The host is negging me on.
Yes, but it's so funny too, because it's like, hey, you watch Survivor. And then someone's like, you know what? I will. When's it on? Yeah, a month from now. So
yeah, exactly. That's your calendar. The next thing that's going to happen is, and during the next round of commercials, it'll be just like Jeff sending a reminder on everyone's Alexa for March 1st to just automatically change the TV to CBS.
I know, and it's Jeff way like, Alexa, set a timer for March 1st, 8 p.m.
Oh, just imagine Jeff in his salacious voice like, hey, Google, set an alert for Survivor.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, you do it so much better. I'm so bad at impressions.
No, I mean, listen, it's fine. You are your own unique persona. So I think you garner your own impressions. But from the preview that we got all the way back at the end of Survivor 43, intense is a good way to put it, considering that we start out with, a guy who's going to turn out to be one of our contestants, Matthew, like trying to free climb a rock. It ends with a situation where a challenge is stopped to help somebody. I mean, Marianne, we are on the dawn of Survivor Co. Wrong being released on Netflix tomorrow, February 1st. Could we be looking at a new age Survivor Co. Wrong with Survivor 44?
Oh my goodness. I hope not. I personally hope not, because I think being pulled from the game is one of the worst ways to go, because all of the variables are cut off because of like an injury, which is just so rough. So I'm hoping that for all of these things that we're seeing, it's like, oh no, they're hurt, but they're still fine. That's my wish and hope and dream that it's going to happen, because they'll take very good care of you. They have people who really want to take care of you, and they really want you to be put in the game. So I'm hoping no one gets medevac. That is my nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, you experienced that firsthand. We saw your reaction.
Yeah, and Jackson. It was my nightmare. It was truly so sad.
So one piece of intel we could get is when Jeff followed up with Dalton Ross this past December, he said, and quote, "As you can tell from the Survivor 44 promo, we have an explosive season heading your way in March. The personalities are huge and wildly entertaining. The gameplay is really fun and very active, and the danger of living in the jungle is real." Do you take anything from that, Marianne? As someone who lived in that jungle, is there something that could inherently make this more dangerous than your time there?
Like, I didn't see it as him saying that the jungle was more dangerous per se. I saw that line as him saying Survivor is still as hard as it was in Borneo. Just because we're focusing on the strategy doesn't mean that they're not sleeping, doesn't mean that it's not raining, doesn't mean that it's not physically as hard as it was before. That's how I interpreted it. And that's why I also interpreted with all of the falling and the injuries, that they're really like, this game is still hard. Like, even though we're still 26 days, this game is still hard. That's how I took it personally.
That's interesting. So it was more so used as sort of like the straw man argument of, listen, we're 26 days, but they're 26 days through hell.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, so we shall see if that ends up being the case. Because again, when you hear that and it's coupled with, whoa, everyone stop, medical, get on the field. And this guy be like, can you breathe? Your mind flashes to the worst case scenario. Of course, for
Mhm.
everyone's safety. And I think for Marianne's tear ducts, I certainly hope that is not the case.
I can, my if my tear ducts really can't do it, like it really can. I'd be so sad if someone got pulled from the game. It's truly the worst way to go.
Well, it seems like no matter what may happen, we are in for a hoot this spring.
Mhm.
Jeff described it in the teaser as one of the most intense, unpredictable, inspirational, and most entertaining seasons of Survivor. Now, look, Jeff Probst has been known in the past to sometimes miss the shots he takes with preseason claims. Survivor Worlds Apart, perhaps, as an example, but I don't know. Rob Cesarino says low expectations are the key to happiness, but when Rob's away, the mice will play right now.
I say set it high because I think the thing that whatever you believe that Jeff goes and misses the mark or hits the mark, the thing is he's every time he hypes something up, that means that something good in the season happens. Like for example, Worlds Apart, you have the underdog in Mike going on an immunity run and winning. That's interesting, like as a storyline, as a base, right? You know, with all the other variables of the people, maybe, you know, it could be a little bit of a flop. Some might see it. But then after, if you're already having Jeff be like, this is great, I love the people, I love everything, then that means I really think that we're going to be seeing really great players, really great characters, really great moves, really great storylines. I really think we're going to be seeing things which will be inspirational. So how all the pieces move together, whether the product is something which you would say Jeff did hit the mark or miss the mark, I'm not sure because we haven't watched it, but for sure, I truly do believe we will be able to see those highs that Jeff is speaking about.
No, High was on your season. He's not coming back.
Whoops. You know, I saw a guy with glasses and like fuzzy hair. I got confused.
You can mistook Carson for High?
No, there's someone else.
Oh, yes. We'll talk about him.
Yes.
Well, let's get into some of these pieces that make up this 44th puzzle of Survivor. And puzzles are always the great equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really unique group. Unique, I think, is the way I would put it. Again, I have studied these people very deeply, getting to listen to and read through all the interviews that they have done. And they are such an interesting group. What's interesting to me, particularly, is that they are, you know, I would say more of a white collar shift than maybe previous seasons have been. Though I don't know, maybe there's a trend that needs to be discussed, especially with the 40s. But we're seeing a lot of like office jobs, some service jobs as well. But I think by and large, more like office workers. So it'll be interesting to see like how much that corporate atmosphere kind of becomes the motto of the season. The other thing is that I do believe, and maybe someone could get me on the fact checker here as well, this might be the first season that does not have someone in their 50s in a little while. Which is interesting, right? Because we've had that. The later days crew have been represented in the past several seasons, definitely through the 40s, but all the way even through like 39 as well. So it's a little bit of a younger cast, I would say, too. Marianne, does that say anything about what we're expecting from this season?
Oh my goodness. I genuinely, there's really no way to then expect just based on age as being a factor, right? Because like typically you'd be like, oh yeah, the old people are going to be the ones voted out first, right? But that's not something that we see. Gabler won last season. Mike was like a big, huge factor in my season, right? Where you had all these people. Heather was also made it to the final four, lost in fire making.
Yeah.
So you still have these older people who are doing well. So I don't think that the age really has a big factor to it, whether there's young or older, but it just, I think, is just like a different mix of the cast this year.
Yeah, well, let's get into said cast. Sam Moore has assembled a lovely little slideshow here. Look, we're not going to come for Bryce's job right now, but give a visual aid to represent who these people are. Now, luckily, the tribes have been given to us as well alongside these contestants. As per usual with the 40s, 3 tribes, 18 contestants, 6 contestants apiece. We are starting with the Ratu tribe, which is how it's pronounced. Emphasis on the 2.
Ratu.
We'll talk.
Ratu.
Yeah.
Ratu. Okay.
Well, we'll see if there is indeed perhaps a creature inside someone's hair commanding them how to play Survivor. Let's see what's cooking on Ratu, and we'll start with I would say with one of the bigger faces and names coming out of this cast. So this is Brandon Cotton. Brandon is
Okay.
a 30-year-old security specialist from Newtown, Pennsylvania. But I would say
Okay.
more so his claim to fame is he played for about 4 years with the Seattle Seahawks as a fullback.
That is football?
Yes, that is football,
Okay.
indeed.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Okay.
you can now come to America again.
Okay, yes, thank you. I was like, I have to withdraw my nexus if I don't got. Okay, so he's so security, but then also Seahawks. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so Brandon is coming in with a really unique background. Like you said, he has this
Mm-hmm.
natural athleticism to him, but he reasons
Mm-hmm.
that working in security, he says that people are constantly trying to pull the wool over his eyes, and so he feels
Mm-hmm.
naturally adept for the game. So he is someone who sees a lot of himself in someone like Danny McCray, obviously former NFL
Mm-hmm.
player as well, and looks around at the cast and is saying, okay, time to pull a Jeremy Collins. Let me start building up these meat shields.
Okay, that's great. I wonder if so. Does he go more with the Jeremy Collins meat shields, or also does he include the Jeremy Collins charisma in how he believes that he can play?
So he does say that he feels his biggest asset is morale and he is charismatic. He, in his little
Mm-hmm.
1 minute
Mm-hmm.
package video on CBS, he considers himself a jack of all trades. He plays the
Mm-hmm.
piano. He does magic
Ooh.
tricks. He's a
Ooh.
pilot.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's great because if he helps with morale at camp, that means you have the challenge strength because you have to be fit to be in the NFL. And then you also have the morale where it's like, okay, you have something to do when you're playing at camp. It's like Brandon could be like, hey, look at my thumb. Oh yeah. And then do like a thumb, the thumb magic trick, right? Where you put the thumb in and you pull the thumb out.
Okay, so you're saying
right?
Brandon could keep try morale up with some close-up magic.
Yes. Yes, you get really bored when playing Survivor. There's some downtime, and having people who keep the uptime really is a plus.
And that could help with idols as well. That sleight of hand stuff could work really well.
That's true.
All right, let's
Okay.
move on to the next member of RHAP. And we are moving on to Jamie Lynn Ruiz. Jamie is a 35-year-old from Mesa, Arizona. So she is a yogi. That's the career that she put
Okay.
down. But she's a lot of different things. She's like an
Okay.
artist as well. And she actually just left a 10-year job working in corporate, working in marketing.
Oh,
And
wow.
so what she basically says is that she feels Survivor helped her in corporate America in learning how to build alliances and such. Now corporate America is going to help her in a Survivor. So she's trying to bring that sense of, again, that kind of sharky office politics, but with this natural sense of literal balance that comes from her yogi career.
I love that. I think that's such a great balance where it's like you're able to be in mind with yourself, which I think comes a lot with yoga and meditation, but then also being able to go and handle big energies, big personalities with still not like minimizing yourself. So you're still able to survive in corporate America. I'm really excited to see how that like plays on the island.
Yeah, and something interesting is she is probably the most explicit in my interviews about her game plan. She has like a four corners approach. We'll get more into it later on, but like
I love that.
She's got a plan going in. She's made her whiteboard it
I love
out.
that. It's true. It's true. I went into the game with a plan, and look how that worked out for me. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye on you, Jamie.
A 100% success rate for people who come in with a plan. You heard it here first, folks.
Okay. No,
all right.
Fact checkers right now. Like,
let's move on here. And look, it's been a hot second, but Marianne, the Canadians are back. It is Kane Fritzler. Kane is 25 years old, a law student, recent law grad, actually, from Saskatoon, Alberta.
Okay, well, I can tell you then, as a Canadian, Kane's going to do great on the downtime of Survivor because there's literally nothing to do in Saskatchewan. Like, there's nothing there. There's flat land, fields, there's nothing. So he's going to be great. And I also need to let Kane know if he's watching. If you are the Canadian who ruins the Canadian winning streak, you will have to renounce your citizenship to Canada. So no pressure or anything. Just letting you know. It's like you might not have citizenship to a country.
Brandon could get him into America if he tells him what the Seattle Seahawks are. So that's the loophole he'll be able to exploit.
Perfect. Yeah, you'll be an American citizen, but not Canadian anymore.
Yeah, so Kane is, the lone Canadian on this cast, but still, I would say more than the zero. It is interesting that you point out he is from the Canadian Plains, which I feel like, he's the sixth Canadian if you count Tom
Mm-hmm.
Laidlaw that we've had so far, and I feel like that area is not really represented well. Like you and Omer, for example, were within like 20 minutes of each other.
Yeah, 10. But no, I think if I'm correct, all Canadians have been from the east side. So we've had me, Omer, Erica from Ontario,
Mm,
Drea from Quebec. So
yeah,
Kane being from the plains is actually a big Kane from the plains is
Kane
actually a
from the
big thing.
Plains.
Yeah. And so good for Kane for showing that Canada is more than just the east coast of Ontario and Quebec and the west coast of BC. Like we do have stuff in the middle going on.
Well, Kane hopes to be in the middle when it comes to alliances, and Kane is one of these guys coming in as someone who absolutely adores the game. He says that
Mm-hmm.
he's usually the person when watching the show alongside his friends. Well, they'll turn to him of like, okay, explain that move. How
Oh,
did that happen? We'll see how much that translates to the
yeah.
island. He's hoping that he'll come across as sort of the goofy, young,
Mm-hmm.
affable guy. He says in his CBS video he moves like a Sasquatch, and we'll see
Okay.
how elusive he is as a target,
Mhm.
thusly.
Yep. And I also know he plays Dungeons and Dragons. I too play Dungeons
Yes.
and Dragons. So 5E for the win, especially now, we can still play Dungeons and Dragons because Wizards of the Coast decided to. That's another thing.
Shout out to OGL. Yeah, so we'll see how much
Yes.
Kane can roll for initiative when it comes to playing
Yes.
this game. All right, moving on. Next up here, we're going to harp on Lauren Harp. Lauren is a 31-year-old elementary school teacher from Mont Bellevue, Texas. So Lauren's story is that she recently underwent a divorce and kind of had
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild her life. She is a single mom of two. And as part
Mm-hmm.
of this journey of self-growth, she decided 26 days of Survivor is just what the doctor ordered.
I love that for her. I really do love that. I'm very excited to see how she plays because she has like a drive to play, like a reason where I think I watched her 1 minute video and she's like, I'm coming back for something with my kids, right?
Yeah.
And as we saw in season 43 with Jesse, when people have like a big reason to play and going back, they're fine backstabbing, they're fine doing whatever they need to do to get to the end. So I'm really interested to see how Lauren plays.
Yeah, that's another thing about this cast as well. I haven't done a formal count, but I think we'll track it as we go through the interviews with Rob. The number of parents on this cast, there's a fair amount of them, and it's really interesting. We
Mm.
saw this on something like Second Chances as an example, like how much that idea of parenting, especially when it came to the winner, ended up dominating. So we'll see how much connecting across the children will end up occurring. But yeah, Lauren's hoping a game will be as big as her hair here, but she really
Mhm.
brings that warm Texas energy that should make her a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, yes. I also commend her so much for having natural hair playing Survivor. That is a
Mm.
very, especially like being black, that is a very big choice because yeah, it's a very big choice. I commend her for that.
All right, moving on to Maddie. Maddie Pomia. She is
Mm-hmm.
28 from Brooklyn and was a charity product manager
Okay.
because Maddie pulled a Geo here. She decided to quit her job before playing Survivor.
Ooh.
So she's going for the ultimate paycheck right now.
Okay, honestly, the opportunity cost, it's great, right? You leave your job, which is probably like not making more than $1 million a year. You work 26 days, get $1 million. I see it.
Well, it's interesting because that I think is a bit of a display of Maddie's self-professed impulsiveness. She says that she's someone who always has a short-term plan rather than a long-term
Mm-hmm.
plan, which is why the new era is something that works for her. She
Mm-hmm.
actively called herself impulsive and a bit of a wild card. So
Ooh.
I'm intrigued to see when Maddie is going to bring. She's also very pro girl power. She is
Oh.
one of five daughters. Her family was primarily all women, and she talked about in her video how she's tired of the girls playing from the sidelines. Like you talk about the
Mm-hmm.
social game, I'm going to be out front, I'm going to be leading it, and we're going to take home another one for
Mm-hmm.
the women.
And she's the middle child of five too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
she is.
ooh, there's something true about middle children and the way that they play. I'm also a middle child. So I really think we'll see that big personality, that fighting to have to get your place in Maddie.
All right, let's move on to our final member of Ratu, which
Ooh,
is Matthew Grinstead Maley. This was the guy we saw precipitously climbing the rock in the
okay.
opening of the trailer. He is a 42-year-old barbershop owner from
Okay.
Columbus, Ohio.
That makes so much sense. His beard, is immaculate.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
it is so clean. I know this is leading more into what Bryce does, but like that, like so clean cut. Wow.
Yeah, and he has it tied back, but he has like this beautiful long hair. He looks like essentially if Jonathan Van Nessing cloned himself.
Okay, who's Jonathan Van Nessing?
Have you ever watched Queer Eye?
Vaguely. Okay, okay, yes. Okay. Ding 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 ding.
Yeah,
I know
Jonathan
who you're talking
Van
about.
Ness, I should say. Correct his name.
Yes.
Yes. One of the, with no offense to the other four, one of the breakout stars of
Okay.
Queer Eyes. So yeah, Matthew is here repping. He himself is gay. He and his husband have a 4-year-old son. Again, yet another parent. And he himself was what he calls a water baby nature kid, where his mom worked at the YMCA when he was growing up, and so he spent all his time outdoors. Again, makes sense considering what we see him doing. This is going to be our sort of like Ozzy Cody type of just climbing trees as soon as he sees one.
Okay, and slipping, hopefully, and hopefully being fine after slipping.
Yes, exactly. Hopefully, again, everything is fine. What's interesting is he has spent almost 30 years in the service industry, and he feels like that is something that is going to prepare him the most for the game, is just dealing with all different types of personalities.
Yes, I will agree with you. I will back that up, Matthew. I worked at Walmart, I think, for maybe a year and a bit before I played Survivor, and it really does help. It really does help. You see a lot of different people, like a lot of wild people, and it's going to be great because I know he's going to have stories to say at camp, and stories keep you going.
Well, especially, we'll talk about perhaps someone else that might regale people with stories around the shop. But I think, like, when you're getting your hair cut, all you can do is just sit and chat. And so I would imagine that Matthew certainly has the gift of gab there.
And the gift of continuing gab and knowing when to gab and when not to. I don't have that gift.
All right, let's move on here to our second tribe, Soca. Listen, you talk about Rob switching over to Disney, but I'm glad that Survivor is honoring the upcoming Ahsoka series on Disney Plus by giving her an entire tribe here.
Okay, true. That was over my head a little.
Star Wars. I was either going to make that or an Avatar: The Last Airbender reference. I'm not sure which would have hit more.
Oh, I would have gotten Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes,
Soca. There we go. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll see if it'll be as washed up as Sokka, the wannabe waterbender, is. Let's get into our first member here, someone who certainly has already caused a lot of excitement on the few hours she's been on social media after officially being announced.
Oh, yeah.
Claire Rafson. So Claire is 25 years old. She is a tech investor and a venture capitalist from Brooklyn. And she is, and I quote from my interview with her, a loud as hell, 5'2", queer Black Jewish girl.
Oh, okay. Wow. Another corporate girly. That's 2 so far.
Yeah. Wow. So what's interesting about Claire is obviously with the way I described her, she is not easily fit into a box. And she feels like what makes her really adept for Survivor is the fact that she has always kind of had to navigate an environment where she is the odd one out. And given Survivor, where there are so many individual personalities being managed, it's just another day for Claire.
No. And that's honestly such a good thing to have when you're playing Survivor too. Because let's say you're left out in a vote and you have that feeling already. You've had that feeling in your life of being the odd one out. You know what to do to then move forward, to then be reintegrated into the group, to move back in, to let yourself, whatever, even if you feel like you're the odd one out, still work in the framework that you're working with. So that could be actually really good on Survivor as well too. But you never know. Claire might never be blindsided. And then after, she won't even need to use the odd one out powers.
The odd one out clap powers sounds incredibly great. So she is someone who has a really fun origin story as well. She said she started watching the show peeping through her parents' keyhole because the show was too inappropriate for her age. And she has now grown into this quote unquote mega fan and now Survivor contestant proper.
Wow. So she's the reason why they're now pitching it as a family-friendly show. Probably Claire was like, Jeff, I wasn't able to watch. And Jeff's like, wow, Claire, we're going to have to fix that. And now we're seeing all the ads. Watch it with your family. Prepare with your family.
Yeah. Keep the doors open.
Keep the doors open.
Could that be actually, Marianne, your season infamously had this mysterious lock as your logo. Could that have been Claire's origin story referred to?
Probably. Claire saw the lock and she's like, this is my time. It's my time.
All right, I guess I should apply. It's the lock season finally.
Yeah, it's like it's the keyhole. I know that keyhole. I saw Tocantins through that keyhole.
Exactly. That's why you only caught a little. You knew Samotion through the keyhole. That's about it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so Claire is really exciting here because she talked about wanting to play up this perception of obviously being a smaller person coming
Mm-hmm.
across as a bit bubbly, where
Mm-hmm.
again, maybe perhaps true to the person I'm talking to right now, nobody sees her coming.
It's true. It's true. When you're a lot of times, and we've seen in the past seasons, a lot of times personality will shield you from your strategy, which is such a good where you shield yourself when you're playing, which gives you a little more wiggle room than someone, let's say, who like might look like nerdy with glasses and like all where now they have to be like, well, I'm not strategic, I promise you. Like they have to then try to downplay that when it's like other people be like, oh, she's just bubbly, like she's not strategic, but she's actually doing things in the background.
All right, well, let's move on to the next member of Soca, Danny Massa, a
Ooh.
born and raised Bronx, New York City firefighter.
Oh wow. Okay.
So Danny is 32 years old. He
Mm-hmm.
admits right off the gate, the entire concept of Survivor terrifies him.
Mm.
But he's one of these people that says everything I've done in my life terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
He has a very fun origin story where essentially like his niece and nephew applied him for the show. Like they were watching and came down the stairs and were like, Uncle, you've got to watch the show and then apply for it. So Danny, I think perhaps true to that, is very explicit about how perhaps the opposite of you, Marianne and Jamie, coming in with absolutely no plan whatsoever. He says, anytime you do that, it's going to go out the window instantly. And so he
Mm-hmm.
is hoping to just, much like his career, right, having to roll with the punches, stop, drop,
Mm-hmm.
and roll with the punches, if you will, that he'll be able to do as such.
Yeah, I think that's a great being adaptable is the biggest skill that you can have in Survivor. Being able to go see where you are and then see how you can move forward based on where you are, not where you want to be. And like also like firefighter from the Bronx, like he just feels gives me like younger Mike Turner vibes because like born and raised and now firefighter where they were born.
Well, that's interesting because I know Mike certainly talked about, right, his very gruff exterior and how there was
Mm-hmm.
some softer vulnerability underneath that.
Mm-hmm.
Danny feels the very similar way. He outright says, I know initially I'm going to be perceived as like a bro-ish frat boy jerk. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully he's able to overcome those first impressions, perhaps overcompensate with the nice side of Danny
Mm-hmm.
to overcome those initial impressions.
Okay. I'm excited to see Danny.
All right, let's move on from Danny to Franny. This is
Oh.
Franny Marin. Franny is 23. She's a research manager at a mindfulness and compassion center up in
Ooh.
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. That's Harvard,
Yep,
Cambridge.
yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's like the Harvard Boston area, and
Okay.
she comes initially from Minnesota, but
Okay.
right now she focuses a lot on this idea of mindfulness, right? About
Mm-hmm.
having compassion for others. So she has that emotional side. She also touts having a background in not social services, social skills in
Mm-hmm.
service jobs. She spent, I believe, 5 years working in a nail salon, and she believes
Oh.
that actually might be the most applicable experience to her time on Survivor.
Okay. That's true. A lot of people coming in, a lot of things need to be done. Okay. Interesting.
The way Franny markets herself is that the modern era of Survivor is a tornado of chaos, and
Mm-hmm.
she wants to be the eye of the storm. She feels like in her job, there's all sorts of anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
things flying her way, and she
Mm-hmm.
somehow is the Michael Bluth, the one person to keep it all together. And hopefully, she'll be able to not keep her game in Arrested Development and bring that to the island. And in the midst of so many things being thrown her way, be the one to say, "Yeah, we can work through this.
I
It
love
doesn't
that.
matter."
Because two things. Number one, chaos is a ladder. So if there's chaos, you can make something of it if you're ready to. And number two, that analogy, like Jeff's gonna love her because Jeff, loves his analogies. Jeff loves those ways how you're going and saying Survivor is like this. This part of the game is like this. So she's gonna be in great, great hands with all these analogies and the stories and the eye of the stormies.
Yeah, I'm really excited for her interview as well. Her 1 minute video, she used words like gumption and zesty, specifically claiming that the word zesty is her
Zesty
word.
is her
Yeah.
word. Zesty. Okay. I wonder if
Yes.
she owns Zester. It's like I'm zesty and I have a zester and I'm gonna zest all these players
Oh, she
to
goes, honey,
become.
I am the zester.
Oh, that's a good one.
Rub your lime on me.
That's a weird one.
1 for 2. 1 for 2.
That's a good. No, you've had a lot of bangers, so don't worry.
Well, let's move on to our next contestant here. Next member of the Soca tribe is Heidi Lagares Greenblatt. So Heidi is 43 years old. She's an engineering manager, currently resides in Pittsburgh, but she originally grew up for 23 years in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
And so she has this really interesting story where in 2003, 20 years ago, she moved to this country with just a job offer. And that was it. She moved to New York with, no real grasp of the language, with no money, no car, etc. And she has been able to build this life over 2 decades. She's been doing very successfully now, a mother of 2, has a husband as well. And she's using that sort of tenacity and fighting spirit to hopefully translate to the game.
I love that. I really enjoy that. I enjoy the jumping in just with a job offer and figuring it out, that excitement of being like, well, I know I want to do this, so this is how we're going to do it. Then we're going to figure out the things after. That commitment is something which is great in life and in Survivor.
And Heidi, interestingly, I think has some similarities and some differences to what she calls the people that have pioneered her path. She talks a lot about Sandra, obviously another Puerto Rican winner there, as hopefully Heidi will be. But she also is filling this very niche role where she says she wants to do it not only for Latinas out there, but Latinas in STEM. And specifically, as she says, all the people who may have an accent, who may sound different and look different, this is for you.
Yeah. And that's something which I'm so excited about, like just seeing more diversity in the cast and more people where it's like, for example, like she said, Latinas in STEM. It's like, I'm in STEM, but I'm not Latina. So therefore, if someone's looking at me, they're not going to see that. But now they get to see that in Heidi and see that, like, okay, and especially being in engineering, which is more male dominated, that's even more exciting, where it's like being able to be that trailblazer so that there's less trailblazers to be needed in the future.
All right, moving on to the next member of Soca, we have Josh Wilder. Josh is a 34-year-old surgical podiatrist from Atlanta, Georgia.
Ooh, okay. So an upgrade to Deshaun, because Deshaun was a podiatry student. This is like the final evolution. This is not disrespect to Deshaun. This is just a joke, basically being that Josh is practicing and Deshaun's still learning.
Deshaun was wild. Josh is wilder.
Ooh.
So, Josh, works in a medical field, and he has an extensive history in the medical field as a patient more so than an administrator. So Josh was born with a condition called prune belly syndrome, where at one point he wasn't supposed to make it past 5.
Oh my gosh.
But when he was 9 years old, he received a kidney transplant from someone who had unfortunately died in a car accident when she was 15. And Josh has this mentality of like, I'm going to sort of live my life for both of us, do the things that she did not have the time to do. And I don't think he knew she was a Survivor fan. I don't think it's literal, but I think it's certainly something that gave him initiative to step foot on the beaches of Fiji.
I love that. Like, well, obviously I don't love that. You know what I'm trying to say. I love the mindset is what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm so excited to see Josh play. I'm so excited to see exactly how he's going to do. Like, I'm very, very excited to see Josh play.
Yeah, Josh is really interesting in that he comes in with the surgical mindset, right, of you never know what might happen in the operating room, so I'm prepared for that. At the same time, to prognosticate a bit of my interview with him, he's very by the books in the way he wants to approach things. He's like, I'm going to be athletic. I'm going to be a provider, very much shades of Ryan from last season. I'll turn it on when we get to the post-merge, but like right now, I just want to be looked at as an asset. Also should be noted, he is going to lie about his job. He is not going to tell people he's a surgical podiatrist.
He's probably going to do what? Personal trainer?
I would imagine so, right? Like, look at those guns.
Yeah, just like he also gives very personal trainer vibes. So like I feel like he could, like, especially where it's like if the vibe where he's like encouraging, like it makes sense. Like I'd go with personal trainer. So Josh, go into that time machine, go back in time and say personal trainer if you did it. And if
smash
you did,
the hourglass, baby.
Smash the hourglass. Yeah, let's bring that back.
All right, let's move on here to the final member of the Soca tribe, Matt Blankenship. So we have a Matthew and we have a Matt. I'm assuming this was your face blind high from earlier.
Yes, face blind high, exactly.
So that sounds like a take on FBI. That's just a terrible, terrible rhyming scheme. So Matt is a 27-year-old security software engineer from the Bay Area. The way he described it in his video, right, is like essentially he has to play the role of hacker to exploit bank security systems, so essentially tell them what the holes in their security are.
Okay. I like that. That's great. And then probably means programmer, which means that you're great with long days, a lot of pressure, which is basically Survivor. Long days, a lot of pressure. So hopefully that means that he won't crack in any situation.
Yeah, Matt is a really interesting case where he basically like thrives in his mistakes. He openly
Mm.
says that he applied for his job a number of times before getting it. He applied to Survivor a number of times before getting it.
Mm-hmm.
He applied to college a number of times before getting it. But he's one of these people that says
Yep.
essentially like learn through failure.
Yep.
True to that, his favorite non-winner is Eric Reichenbach. And so
Oh, I love that.
so it should be interesting to see someone who commits, one of the most famous blunders in Survivor history. Those who don't learn from their mistakes are doomed to repeat it. Will Matt be the live up to that rule?
No, I think Matt's gonna do fine. I think Matt right now is on my most likely to pick himself up after being blindsided list.
Yeah, I definitely could see that category as well because again he talks a bit about like dealing with his own anxiety as well and
Mm-hmm.
living in his head. So I think his journey, no matter how long he lasts, is going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, for all the other players, I'm excited to see him play.
All right, finishing things off with the last tribe, Tika. Not
Tika.
Taku, Tika.
Tika.
Delicious as a nice dish of tikka masala, I should
Ooh.
say. Let's start with Bruce. Hello, Bruce. Bruce is a 46-year-old realtor and insurance agent from Warwick, Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then with our tikka masala, we can wash it down with some para-alt. Period.
Yeah.
I really tried. Let's
No, I love it. No, I
gotta continue. This is live.
The show must go on.
Okay.
Listen, as you said, they can't all be bangers. But Bruce has a really interesting backstory. So Bruce was abandoned when he was about 2 or 3 years old.
Oh yeah.
He was in the foster care system, ended up getting adopted when he was 7 years old. But from that perspective, it kind of taught him at a very young age how to formulate and value both short-term and long-term relationships, considering the idea of, okay, you may not know exactly what home you'd be living in any given month.
Okay.
So Bruce is somebody who, again, is also a bit by the books. He's marketing himself as like all about changing colors, adapting with the game. He says, I don't care about challenges. I don't care about food rewards. Survivor to me is about studying people. I don't care about looking for advantages. I just want to focus on the people proper. If you're in a bad situation, you're most likely to get out of it by working with other people rather than hunting for something in a tree.
That is a very hot take, but I see where he's coming from. It's true. It's Survivor is a numbers game. Survivor is a social game. It's like there's like, I think Christian talked about it, where when you play an idol and you're safe, but you're out the next round after, right? Where it's like you need the people, you need the numbers. So okay, Bruce, I'm interested.
Let's move on to another person who I think drew a lot of excitement, including herself. This is one of the most excitable members of the cast. This is Carolyn Weiger. Carolyn, 35-year-old drug counselor. She works primarily in jails, from Hugo, Minnesota. And it's interesting, she is a drug counselor who herself was an addict, dealt with that, is now 13 years sober. And she kind of credits that with the ability to really come to terms with who she was. And from that perspective, she is adamant about the fact that she is not going to hide any singular part of herself out in the season.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good thing to go in. If you come in not hiding anything about yourself, that's one less thing you have to juggle in your mind. You don't have to be like, what did I say my job was? What did I say this was? You can come in and then everyone knows who you are. You don't have to lie. Then you can use your mind capacity for other things which are more important, like who are we blindsiding today?
I am so excited for you all to get to know Carolyn. An absolutely fantastically wild interview. You'll be listening to it sooner rather than later, reading it as well. I mean, she describes herself as goofy, as spontaneous, as free-spirited. And again, that is fully represented in this interview, and I think will be fully represented during the entire season as well, because she was inspired by people like Nora from season 39 and by one Maryanne Oketch. She said that watching you win right before she came out, like, she was in tears, and it was so inspirational to her to be reminded of, okay, I can go out there, be myself, not fear any judgment, and still be $1 million winner at the end of the day.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you. And I hope you play. I honestly hope you played your heart out. I hope you really enjoyed yourself and you really got to be fully you when you played the game, Carolyn. I really hope that.
She is going to no matter what. I guarantee that. I'm really
Perfect.
excited for people to get to know Carolyn a bit more because again, if we're going to get even an ounce of the personality she was showing in these interviews, we are in for a wallop of a season with this character.
I'm so excited then.
Let's move on here to Carson. Carson Garrett. Carson, the youngest cast member this season, only 20 years old. He is a second-year NASA engineering student from Atlanta, goes to Georgia Tech.
Okay, so NASA has an engineering program?
I believe it's sort of like, yeah, it's and he's a rocket scientist, basically.
Okay.
Or a wannabe one. I don't think it's specific to NASA, but I think it's sort of stated as such. So he's consistently working on that. He has sort of doted around between a few majors, as every good college student does, before finally deciding on engineering, which also led him down this unique path where he talks about this one time being like put in this project management course where him as a second year was like, as a freshman even, was sort of like having to dote out orders to seniors. And granted, that is a bit of like a small fish in a big pond, and now we are in the outer space limits that is Survivor by comparison. But I think Carson is very aware of his age and how he comes across, yet still has that ability to command authority if he wants to.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I also, watching his 1 minute video, I think that he has the strategy, at least the theories of the strategy well. Like, I think he said something where I just want to be goofy in the beginning and then in the end be that puppet master. I really think in Survivor, it's so easy to think, like, have a first impression for someone, and once you have that impression, it's hard to break down that impression. So if you have people think that you're goofy, that you're young, and then that gives you more ability later in the game to then play like a more aggressive game and gives you more shield, because people are like, well, it can't be Carson because he's goofy and young.
Yeah, that's the thing is he actually invokes the name of, one of your colleagues, Marianne and Omer, and that he loves how Omer worked everything behind the scenes, and he wants to do the exact same thing. Now, hopefully without being sort of discovered as the puppet master and then cutting the strings to said puppet.
A little too earlier. Yep.
Yeah, hopefully he won't find his Marianne out there to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not going to be a long, long time before we're talking about Rocket Man and Carson. Really excited to get to his interview as well. He has such an interesting mind for the game because, again, it's been around as long as he is. And I think
longer.
Yeah,
he's
longer.
20, yeah.
Yeah, so I think like sort of always having that around. We talked about this, of course, with people like Xander, with Liana, with Zach, with Swathi, and with Sammy, like how it compares, how that sort of influences how much they want to take the game by storm and how that may or may not work out for them.
Okay, I'm really interested. Okay.
And I believe Carson as well is the one in the trailer who talked about studying FBI, not FBI techniques as well. So we'll see how much, again, those book smarts translate to beach smarts.
Okay, we'll see that.
All right, moving on. Next, we have Helen Lee. Helen is 29 years old. She is a product manager from San Francisco.
Okay.
So Helen was very much inspired by the trajectory of one of your fellow Canadian winners, your predecessor, Marianne, in Erica.
Okay.
Very much, they're both Asian women, a little bit on the smaller side, working in these corporate environments and being underestimated. She talks up this idea of context switching, essentially code switching, by just given her background, which she thinks makes her naturally adept to all the different scenarios that'll be thrown her way socially.
Okay. I love that, especially the focus on the social game, the focus on just like being okay, being underestimated to get the results that you want in the end. These are all great things that we want to see, that I'm excited to see in Helen.
Yeah, Helen invokes this idea of judo, of using your weaknesses as your strengths, and this idea of how essentially her job as a product manager is having to have the idea, but persuading others to accomplish said idea, which is Survivor in a nutshell. So I'm excited to learn more about Helen. And she talked about her own perception as, again, being a bit on the smaller side. She knows she comes off as, quote, an airhead, as a ditz, and hopes she maintains that guise while behind the scenes she's doing a lot more.
That's great. If you're able to maintain an airhead ditz, that is perfect, because it doesn't matter what people, as long as people are willing to make moves with you, it doesn't matter what they're going to think about you, as long as you're able to explain yourself at the end. So good for you, Helen.
All right, penultimate Survivor 44 cast member. Let's wade in the water with Sarah Wade. Sarah is a 27-year-old management consultant from Chicago.
Okay. Is that how we say it?
Chicago. When you were in Chicago, that's how you say it.
Okay.
It's not any sort of like authentic cultural pronunciation or anything.
Okay.
But Sarah is someone who was very much inspired, tragically so, by the loss of her best friend a couple of years ago, which sort of taught her to kind of take life by the reins and just do whatever she wanted to accomplish, knowing you never know when those opportunities might get snatched away from you. And that includes Survivor as well.
That's true. That's true. You never know when you're going to be blindsided.
I'm also getting a lot of pushback from Chicago and State Chicago. I do apologize.
Okay.
Yes, I'm an East Coast boy, okay? I said it a little bit OTT. But Sarah is somebody who talks about working in a male-dominated field and having to vary kind of how she's perceived based on not only her own personality, but that of others. We talked about that a lot with other people, how again, that can translate to the game of Survivor as well. And she also compares herself to Andrea Belke. She says, on the outset, we are, a sweet, younger girl, but we are really tough. We're tough as nails. And we're going to see.
Wrong show.
I'm still in that mindset right now when it comes to the big CBS in me. But we shall see. Andrea was 3 for 3 in her post-jury appearances on Survivor. We'll see if Sarah's able to replicate that.
That or maybe a little better. Maybe you want to be 0 for 3, so you win.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I suppose you're replicating it and then improving upon
it.
Again, going from wild to wilder again.
Yes.
All right, last but certainly not least, we are finishing with Jamil Arocho, or you can just call him Jam Jam.
Jam Jam, okay.
Jam Jam is a 36-year-old salon owner from born and raised in Puerto Rico. He currently resides in San Juan. I believe people can fact check me here. The first Survivor contestant who currently resides in Puerto Rico to play.
Okay. I think so. I wouldn't know, but I think so. I remember.
Yes. Jam Jam, Survivor is his jam. He has been watching the show since he was a teenager, and he very much was inspired by the Suri, I'm going to get off the couch and play mentality. He talks about, unfortunately having to go through Hurricane Maria several years back, and his salon and his home didn't have power for 90 days. And this is a guy who had to rally this entire team of people from all walks of life to prevail through those times. Jam Jam really prides himself on being able to be that light shining in the darkness, and hopes that'll be able to get him on the radar of everything socially so that it can really push him through to the end game.
Yes. I'm so excited for Jam Jam. I think he's the one who said he was excited to poop in the water. Team Aquadump already has it, already knows. And another thing which I'm excited is I've looked at some of people's I'm on Survivor's posts, but Jam Jam's really stood out to me because his whole first post was all fully in Spanish. And for me, I was so excited because I'm oh my gosh, imagine going, Spanish is your first language, this show, and then you see someone on the show who's I'm on this show. This is I'm Puerto Rican. This is me too. And even with what is it, Helen, who's also Puerto Rican.
Helen, yep.
And just
sorry, Heidi.
Heidi. I'm so bad with names, but even just seeing just the full diversity, how many different walks of life we have from so many different people, is just so exciting for me to see. And I'm so excited, and just, I can go on forever, but I'm just so excited.
So is Jam Jam. He's the one at the end of the trailer, right, that, as you mentioned, talks about the Aquadump being excited about everything. I mean, his smile, you could see it here. He is someone who radiates that energy that comes from a customer service perspective, working in a salon, but it's also something he naturally does. He prides himself on being able to be that fun guy to get to open up that vulnerability within people. So I'm excited to see if Jam Jam will be able to preserve that, in a manner of speaking, and also perhaps utilize it to perhaps get what he wants to in the game.
I hope so. I'm a Jam Jam fan.
All right. Well, that is our cast for Survivor 44. Marianne, any overall thoughts after now getting to see them?
I think we got a great group of people. We have a great mix of people. We have, like you said, a lot of parents. That's a very interesting one. A lot of parents. So I really wonder how that's going to affect, if it's going to impact, if at all, the game, and how it does, if it does.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. I think once Rob and I are going to break down these tribes individually, we'll get a lot more into how certain dynamics will happen. I think, for instance, one question I asked is, how eager will you be to look for advantages in the game? In my opinion, that's the question to pay attention to majorly in these interviews, because you will be surprised with how many people say yes and how many people say no. And I think that could really bear out in these initial days when you've experienced firsthand, right, the value of finding these advantages early on.
Exactly. Finding them and managing. Well, a hidden advantage, I believe, is better than a known advantage. So, and there's beware, but as we saw from last season, the beware, like you can have someone else find an advantage and get that advantage for them, and then no one else knows. So, yeah, like I said, there's so many different things, and I'm now going on my own little tangent, so I'll stop now.
Well, let's finish things off with a nice little clip that got thrown our way but an hour ago. If people do not wish to see this footage, very understandably so, if you're like, okay, I got to know the cast, I'm going to be in the dark for the next month, go ahead. But for those of us that want to join in the light and bask in the warmth of Survivor 44, feel free to stay tuned. I'll plug the stuff we're doing right now in case people are hopping up. We'll do the full plugs at the end. But just so you know, what's coming up next is at the end of this week, Rob and I are going to start our tribe breakdown preview podcast. We're going to start with the Tika tribe. We're going to start with Bruce, Carolyn, Carson, Helen, Sarah, and Jam. And we're going to be listening to the interviews that I was able to conduct preseason, get to break down their bios, their CBS videos, anything we know about them, and get a bit more into who they are and how they might have an effect on the game. We're going to be doing Tika at the end of this week. I think then we'll be doing Soca the next week, and finally RHAP the week after. That'll be in reverse over at parade.com. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing written interviews twice a day.
Oh, wow. Keep on writing, writer boy.
There we go. We're at 10 and 2. We're going to be driving our way to the end of the preseason here. And I'm going to be going in the order of RHAP, Soca, Tika. So that by the end of it, we'll have the full picture, I think, of everything. But yeah, starting tomorrow, you get to find out more about this really, really fun cast. And you can find that all at parade.com. Hopefully, my blabbing has given ample time for the looky-loos or non-looky-loos to want to hop out and not get potentially spoiled by the preview here. But we got to take advantage of this, right? This came our way. And Marianne, we need your live reaction and everyone's live reaction to this as well.
Okay.
So let's get this set up here. This is about a 3-minute clip from the opening of Survivor 44, where Jeff is addressing everyone on the mat. We get a sense of the cast, I will say that, because they give some very interesting answers and show off some very interesting personalities. So if we could get that queued up, we should be good to go.
Welcome to Survivor 44. You're here for 22 years. Survivor has been exploring the idea of group dynamics and interpersonal relationships in a really unique way. You take a group of strangers, strip them of everything.
Any minute I could lose a toe.
You abandon them, force them to create a new society while relying on each other. That's the group dynamic. Then you put this game on top of it where you have to vote players out.
Michaela.
What? And in the end, the last player left wins $1 million. That's the interpersonal part. To win Survivor, you have to be excellent at both. And what makes it so tricky is you can never predict what is going to happen because it's always new players. So it's always a new game, which is why you were constantly assessing and adapting, which is what you're doing right now with First Impressions. Guy in the front, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Jam.
Jam. You've got a group of people you've never met. You're going to rely on each other quickly to live in this jungle. What do you want to see from a tribe member?
I want to see someone that's just gonna give it all, because we're here to win and we need each other. If you have to puke out everything you have inside, if you have to sweat every tear, we are family here, so bring it. I'll grab your puke bag. I'll wipe up your tears, you know?
Woman in the front, right here, what's your name?
Franny.
Franny, interesting what Jam just said. He said, we are a family. He's been standing next to these people for less than a minute, and they are family. Is it because of the buff? Is it because you're divided? What gives someone a sense that we're family?
As soon as we jumped off these boats together, we were all bonded together. I don't know, we're just standing here. It's something about this color. We're breathing each other's bad breath already. Like, The bonds are forming quickly, and I think they're going to be really tight.
Guy on the end, the beard, what's your name?
Matthew.
Matthew, any fear right now of anything?
I'm just trying to figure out what's going on right now. I don't even know. I mean, the anxiety's so high. So, I mean, I'm sure I should be fearful, but I'm not there right now. I just try to take deep breaths and try to hold it all in, because if I don't, I feel like my heart's just gonna plop right out here and just make a mess out of everybody in the front row. So I'm just trying to hold it in right now and maybe refocus that into the challenge ahead of us.
All right, let's get into it. Tribe names, wearing orange, Ratu. In the middle in green, Soca. And on the end in purple, Tika.
There
That was so
we
fun.
go. Marianne, any fear of anything?
No, I'm fearless. Yeah, that's such a such a specific, odd question to ask someone too, like point blank. Hey, Mike, what are you afraid of? Like, what do you even say? And that's such a bad question too, like to answer. Like, imagine then, like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of being blindsided. Oh, so they think you're going to be blindsided? Like, that is such a loaded question, Jeff. I love it.
What an odd question, and then what an odd answer to the question of Matthew being like, well, I don't want my heart to fall out of my chest and splatter people like the Blue Man Group.
Yes, but it's like, oh, no. I'm fine with it falling out, just getting it on other people. I don't want to do that. That's just so unnice of me.
I think this is going to be a really fun season, considering that the three answers we got from this cast, the first thing that they talked about was Jam saying, I'll be your puke bag.
Yeah.
Franny talking about everyone smelling each other's bad breath.
Yeah.
And again, the aforementioned Matthew heart-spilling comment.
Bleeding heart.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think, a really enjoyable season.
Yeah, like I said, I'm so excited, as I am for every season. Like, the older I get, now, oh, you kids, I can't wait for you to watch the season and watch you play. So, like I said, very excited. Every good survivor is a good survivor.
Absolutely. Marianne, any other things you want to talk about or preview? Do you have any picks right now, just like semi-blindly looking at these people? Are you avoiding the M names?
Oh, yes. I always avoid women with M's because I believe there's a curse on the M, and I'm like, just numbers game. It's a numbers game.
Sorry, Maddie.
Yeah. Sorry, Maddie. So for people who I have, based on the info that I have, I love, like I said, I love Franny. I love, I think Carson, depending on like whether he's able to implement a strategy, has a good chance. I think this is a season for the parents as well too. So rooting for all, like just casting it with all the parents. And then I think who else? Franny, Carson. I love Claire. Like I love Jam. Like I try not to have winner picks because I just enjoy every single person. I enjoy the journey that's there. But maybe as more things come out, of course, and I have to love, who is it? Is it Carolyn, the woman with the sleeve? The woman with the sleeve?
Yep, Caroline.
Yes, love Caroline as well too. Like, I can just keep on going.
Yeah. How did it feel to watch her winning moment in a montage from Jeff Probst?
That was, you see, I was watching and like the montage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they got Natalie in there. They got Natalie back there because there's a clip of Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie White. Yeah,
Natalie White was there.
Who had her bingo card that she make an appearance on Survivor. 2023.
Yeah, if anything, it would have been Eric Reichenbach because they love dragging him every single. Hey, remember him? But then after seeing myself, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I played. Wow, who would have thought that? Like, I was interesting enough to be put in a montage. Like, that's wild. Like, never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, so here you are, and I will spoil, you will be invoked a number of times over the course of what happens next on Rob Has a Podcast, which, again, I'll say Rob and myself putting out interviews coming at the end of this week will be our talks with the Tika tribe, next week the Soca tribe, and then finally Ratu with the opposite happening over at parade.com. And then, of course, along the way, the typical other preseason stuff's going to happen. We're going to get Issa Look after that. I'm excited for Bryce to break this cast down. I'm looking out for what he thinks about Jam's cat shirt, which I absolutely adore.
Yes, and no thumbs. No thumbs.
No thumbs. Hey, maybe that's Brandon's magic trick, right? No thumbs.
No thumbs, exactly, right?
And then, of course, we'll also get the fantastic preseason draft, of which Marianne stakes friendships on once upon a time.
Yeah, no. Shannon knows her fault. Like, that's on her for not picking me and picking Omer instead. So who got the last laugh? Not you, Shannon, me.
Well, all that should happen. We'll see who becomes Shannon Gus's next frenemy from the Survivor 44 cast, as she and the gang are going to draft these contestants before the March 1st premiere ends up occurring, and we are back in the saddle with Survivor. I also want to plug right now our reality TV RHAP-Ups feed over at robhasawebsite.com/RHAP-Ups feed, RHAP UPS feed. And just like UPS, we are delivering quality content to you, including some Survivor-specific stuff. Of course, the B&B that myself and Liana Boris are doing. We'll be back in some weeks' time doing a preview. I know David and Jessica will get back together to do a good amount of preseason content as well with Why X Lost. Survivor Global will become a thing once the season starts. So there is plenty of Survivor content to be had, as well as all of the other great coverage we have going on across reality TV and scripted television, wrestling, sports, celebrity, all the fixins in a manner of speaking. I also want to plug becoming a patron of Rob Has a Podcast. Becoming a patron has so many quirks and so many perks right now as well. Of course, the Survivor Academy, which has become a mainstay podcast in the past couple seasons, will be returning. That's a patron-only product. Patrons also get access to submitting questions as well as attending live recordings with Survivor guests over the course of the season. And you get access to some wonderful communities on Facebook, Discord. Also, if you happen to be watching the recently premiered Australian Survivor and you're trying to find a way to do so, there might be a way to, if you become a patron, which you can do at any time at robhasawebsite.com/patron. Marianne, this was such a delight to have you on.
You just pitched all your things. Let me go and do my shout outs.
Well, because I was gonna say this is not the last we're gonna see.
Okay, I was like, that's so rude. I'm like, you get to do all the talking and I don't. Yeah. You think you're done with me, people watching this? You're not. There's more of me. Next, first thing. If you're like me and you love Survivor, so you love every single iteration of Survivor, and you're watching Australian Survivor, we have a recap, me and Shannon, my frenemy, and we're going to be recapping the first week of Australian Survivor. We watched the first episode, second episode, I still need to watch, and there's one more because these big bad boys are 3 a week. That's going to be coming out to you later this week. We're recording on Wednesday, so it'll be out by the end of the week. So excited to talk to Shannon about it, about Australian Survivor, about how cinematic it is, and like you thought you were done with me after that, the answer is still no. As a lot of people know, I am a big Survivor trivia person, but we have bigger people on my cast. So it's me, Omer, and Zach, all from 42. And all of us, hosted by Jordan Kalish, we are going to have a Twitch-approved Survivor trivia to see who the biggest super fan of Survivor Season 42 is. And then the biggest super fan will be facing with the super fan of them all. The guy who apparently loves Survivor so much, he made it his job, but isn't here for the premiere. Kind of weird, kind of funny. But we're going to go up against him. And that is going to be next Wednesday at 8 p.m. I am so excited. My boyfriend's coming on at the airport at that time. I told him, I'm not picking you up. I have to do with this with Survivor. So figure out a way to come and see me because Survivor's obviously my life. Rob Sestranino.
Wow. Cutting a wrestling promo, not even for the people you're facing off against, but like the grand poobah, the Rob of Rob Has a Podcast.
I know. We'll have to make a mahap, even though it doesn't have a good ring to it.
No, we're putting you on the mahap with the Survivor trivia. So check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. Excited to watch you all take. If you ask Jordan Kalish if he has any fears, it would definitely be math. So we'll see if he's able to make the numbers work while you all face down and who ultimately reigns supreme in Survivor 42 trivia. And especially excited to watch you talk with Shannon about this first week of Australian Survivor Heroes versus Villains, which has had, oh man, so much exciting stuff happened.
Oh, in the span of an hour and a half, the most has happened. Yes. And so I'll have you know, I struggled to find a link. So if you just want an easy way, just become a patron. Just like how Mike said, it's right there. Because my go-to link place, too many people used the link. So they maxed out the amount of people, which was so sad.
Again, don't be like Rob at, Spaceship Earth and get maxed out. Get the fast pass. Get your link. Get your access on the ride that is Survivor AU. Of course, you can follow me at a Mike Bloomtop. I actually will be sort of jumping in from time to time to do exit press for Survivor AU. I got the chance to talk with the first boot. Yeah, it's weird. I believe this makes me, if I am estimating things correctly, the only Survivor journalist that has done exit press for Survivor US, AU, and South Africa.
Wow. You're going to now have to get into UK and learn some French to do Quebec.
All right. Well, je suis in la Juvie. I'm halfway there, I'm assuming. So I'm really excited to have those interviews come out, as well as listen to Marianne's coverage over there with Shannon. And then over on post-show recaps, things are really hopping right now. Marianne, have you watched The Last of Us yet?
Okay, I have not watched The Last of Us, but I've heard so many good things about the show, and everyone loved the episode. Like I said, I know exactly what happens because I listen to the podcast, plus my boyfriend lets me know about it. But if you don't have a Connor who loves The Last of Us, then I recommend going and listening to the post-show recap of The Last of Us.
Thank you. It's myself and Grace Leader. Right after the episode drops, we are the first of us talking The Last of Us, and holy shnikes, this past week's episode understandably, deservedly took the internet by storm, featuring celebrity Survivor fan Nick Offerman in a star turn. One of my favorite episodes of television that I have seen, at least in the past year, besides the finale of Survivor 42 when I watched Marianne win $1 million. But a truly incredible episode of television, and I was so happy that I got to break that down. The other thing I'm covering is Marianne. You talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Critical Role's animated adaptation, The Legend of Vox Machina, is already in its back half. I know that you and I have talked offline about being fans of The Adventure Zone, our mutual friend Justin McElroy led podcast. Have you ever gotten into Critical Role at all?
Like, I really tried, but then it's just so daunting, like the 3-hour podcast. Yeah. So like I'm more of like a Adventure Zone, Dimension 20, where it's like you just sit down like on a commute. But someday I'll get into Critical Role. Someday.
Well, I very much recommend you check out The Legends of Vox Machina, their animated adaptation. It very much truncates things, to your point, and it's a lot of fun. That's happening over on Amazon Prime. The last thing that I will plug here is, Marianne, something you and I were involved with in very separate ways, but still under the same fantastic umbrella, sharing the same incredible interviewer in the great Matt Scott. You and I were the first two guests on this season of Pod Friends.
Yes.
Over the past couple weeks. Anything you want to preview or plug from your Pod Friends interview?
Like I say, honestly, listen to it, because it's so interesting, because we talk about Survivor, we talk about these things where it's like, oh yeah, you can get snippets of Marianne or snippets of Mike or how, like, what Mike's thinking. But it's like, if you want the full bloom of Mike, then it's so good to go and listen to the Pods with Friends.
Absolutely. So yeah, both Marianne and I get into a lot of stuff about, our own personal lives. It's been a really incredible week of feedback, I would say, from these types of podcasts. And so if you want to get to know more of us for some reason, feel free to check out all that and all the great stuff Matt Scott is doing, talking about another Survivor crossover. Just released an interview with Dr. Evie Jagoda as well.
Dr. Jagoda. Love the doctor. Love him. I'm so excited.
All right, so that is going to do it for this kickoff podcast for coverage of Survivor 44. Again, check out my coverage over at parade.com. I also have the video we just watched just posted over there as well. Full photos and bios of the entire cast is out there too, that we'll certainly get into with Rob Cesternino, which will be the podcast coming up at the end of this week as we break down the Tika tribe. I'll be starting things up with RHAP 2 over on parade.com starting tomorrow. Survivor US season is back, and I could not be more excited. It helps that I'm on the air with such an excitable personality in Marianne. I've been beaming from ear to ear this entire time.
Thank you. So it really means a lot. You hear that, Rob? Just be happy with your family, because you're coming back not to your empire. It's mine now.
Yeah, Rob's talking to Jam Jam about his own puke bag, but that's because he went on mission to Mars and went on the hard difficulty, so he's just feeling nauseous all the time.
Why does everyone hate the hard difficulty? Like, I love it. This is so, like, everyone was spoken to is like, I don't like the hard difficulty.
I didn't have a problem with it. I just didn't press the button, and it all then became a sham for me, where I'm like, I didn't need to press the button. My job was not important. A robot did my job for me. The mission was still a success.
Yeah, it's Disney. You got to be happy, and you won't be happy if you fail.
Well, hopefully our mission was a success here today. Looking forward to hopefully everyone tuning in all season long. Also, shout out to Owen, who was in the chat as well. If you haven't listened, we are on the precipice of a new season, but Rob did get to do some really great deep dives with the cast of Survivor 43, including Owen. If you want like one last gasp, much like the challenge Owen 1 of Survivor 43, check all that stuff out before we look ahead to another exciting Survivor season to come. Thank you all so much for listening. Marianne, thank you so much again for coming on and offering your always valuable wisdom.
Tell Rob thank you for messing up the dates. Or is it CBS? Who knows?
We'll see. But we're happy to have any excuse to have you on. And like you said, this will not certainly be the last time in the next 7 days. The next time you'll be hearing me will be with Rob breaking down the Tika tribe and getting more into the Survivor 44 cast. Thank you all.
I'll be listening.
Oh, I'm so excited to get into it all. Thank you again so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.